hit throughout the rest of the game, and it's hurting more now.
Comes down to one last play, and it's going to be getting longer by the second. You're all the way back at the 30-yard line. Now you can step into it. Here comes the Hail Mary with the game on the line, and the ball is caught! Caught! It's a miracle! It's Noah Brown! Oh, my goodness! This town is going crazy. It's a madhouse in Landover, Maryland.
He did it.
Oh, this one will be paid back over and over again for decades.
That was nearly a year ago. Obviously, one of the most memorable regular season endings in franchise history. Did it start a rivalry? A lot of you think it did. Or is it just that the quarterbacks that went 1-2 in the 2024 draft will link these two teams together for years to come? That seems more logical to me. More on that coming up. Good morning. It's game day, 8:15 tonight in Landover for Washington and Chicago. The weather not going to be the issue. That storm really missed us to the east. Some wind, some sprinkles. Wind might be the bigger issue, but it's not even going to be that windy tonight. It'll feel like a nice fall evening in Landover. The game is a sellout. My keys to a win over Chicago coming up in about 20 minutes. Predictions later on in the show. Courtney Cronin, who covers the Bears for ESPN, she does what John does, for ESPN for our team. She'll join us at 11. Ben Standig will be with us at 12, and we have plenty of NFL and college football to go over. How about the firing of James Franklin? You want to talk about a 15-day turnaround. They had a 7-point lead in overtime against Oregon 2 weeks ago Saturday. 15 days later, he gone. This from Windy City, Devon. Windy City, Devon writes, Kevin, I think we have a budding intra-conference rivalry between our two teams. He's obviously a Chicago fan. This will be the 5th straight primetime game between the two teams. And a Hail Mary ending in the first game between 1 and 2 in the draft. We've got something brewing. Maybe Cowboys 49ers like. Come on, man. Stop it with that. So, by the way, real quickly, last year was not a primetime game. Now, last year was a highlighted standalone, Nance Romo 425 game. But he is right. Like, I went back of the last 5 games, 4 against the Chicago Bears, primetime, and then last year's 425 game of the week on CBS between number 1 and number 2. And that's why they put it there, because it was Caleb versus Jaden, the 2 top picks in the 2024 draft. But in 2019, these teams played on Monday Night Football in Landover. By the way, I think Mitch Trubisky went off and the Bears thumped the Skins 31-15. Then we had the Thursday night back-to-backs in 2022. The Carson Wentz got injured game, 12-7 win over the Bears. The Bears had a chance there at the very end. And then the game in 2023 on Thursday Night Football, I just remember, sorry, but I had the Bears for the limit because every one of my, fellow fans said, there's no way we can lose to that team. That was hideous, if you recall, DJ Moore with the game of his career, and they just blew Washington out in the first half. Actually, there was a bit of a comeback in that, but it ended 40-20. That was on Thursday Night Football. Then last year, 18-15, Hail Mary, 425, and this year on Monday Night Football. So that's pretty odd, to have of the last 5 games against a team not in your division, 4 of them being prime time, 2 Monday nights, 2 Thursday nights, is a bit strange for sure. But look, all due respect to all of you out there that haven't really experienced a true heated rivalry with our team, because for the better part of a quarter century, we kind of went away in terms of importance with the other teams in our division. but there's no rivalry between the Skins and the Bears. I mean, there may be among a certain age group, perhaps. Again, I'm not knocking it. Find what you want to get you pumped up for the game. I would suggest that there is going to be a comparison between the two teams for years to come. Anytime you go 1-2 in a draft with quarterbacks, you're going to compare and contrast for years to come. And look, the comparing and contrasting is going to be more on Chicago's end. They're the ones that had the choice at number 1. Washington didn't have a choice. Washington had a choice between Jaden Daniels and Drake May. Jaden Daniels, Drake May, Michael Penix Jr., Bo Nix, and J.J. McCarthy. They didn't have a choice between Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels. And by the way, I do believe Adam Peters. I do believe this to be true. And I believe this to be true because in talking with various people leading up to that draft and after that draft, I do believe Adam Peters when he says organizationally, we were all on the same page the moment we broke out the tape on Jaden Daniels. And then if there was any concern, it was solidified the moment we met him. So I do think they would have taken Jaden number 1 overall had they had the number 1 pick. And look, it's too early to say they would have been right or wrong, or it would have been a wash. But they're going to both be great. The way Drake May's played here the last couple of games, Drake May's going to enter the conversation in terms of this draft. Bo Nix has already played well. Penix Jr.'s had a couple of decent games and a couple of bad ones too, as they all have, I think, except 5. I don't think Jaden's really had a bad game, unless you want to chalk up that first half against the Cowboys in the season finale last year as a rough outing, or the Green Bay game this year. That happens. It's too early to go all in on somebody historically. Like, this is it. He's all-time the best quarterback of the draft. I have certainly felt comfortable in going all in on Jaden being a great transcendent quarterback. It doesn't mean that that draft won't produce more than one. And Caleb Williams has played better recently. But back to the rivalry thing, I just don't see it, man. The Skins and the Bears had a playoff history. You know, they played in the postseason multiple times in the 80s, and there was a bit of a rivalry from, you know, the 80s into the 90s, but it was the same rivalry that they kind of had with the 49ers. You know, they were part of this group of teams in the 80s that stayed good. Skins, Giants, Niners, Bears. Those 4 teams just stayed really good for the majority of that decade. And there were awesome games between Washington and Chicago, playoff games, 3 of them, in fact. A 2-1 record, Washington against Chicago in the postseason. Both wins on the road, including in Walter Payton's final game as a Chicago Bear. The game they lost to the Bears in the postseason was here, New Year's Eve, or the day, December 30th, something like that, 1984. They lost to the Bears. That was before the great 85 Bears team. The Bears made it to the NFC Championship game that year, lost to the 49ers 23-0, but it was setting the stage because defensively they were lights out. They sacked Theismann, I think it was 7 times in the game, and it was setting the stage for what would become the 85 Bears, the iconic, legendary 85 Bears. But you know, the Bears and the Niners had games in the postseason. The Giants and the Niners had games in the postseason. The Giants and the Bears had games in the postseason. Washington had postseason games against the 49ers and the Bears. And there were so many regular season matchups of note during that time. That felt like, you know, an era of there are, you know, 4 teams in the NFC that are just really good franchises right now and really good teams, and it created a lot of matchups. The Rams and the Cowboys and the Eagles were kind of on the periphery of that, not really exactly where those 4 were, but even that didn't feel like a rivalry. It just felt like, wow, these are heavyweights matching up every year, it seemed like, in the regular season and 3 times in the postseason. I don't feel anything, as a lifelong fan of this team, I don't feel anything in the way of a rivalry with the Bears that's somehow budding. And to compare it, Windy City, Devin, to the Cowboys and the 49ers, they played 3 NFC title games against each other. Come on. Like, that's not, if we end up getting a great regular season game and a matchup in the postseason this year and a matchup in the postseason next year, and I'm talking about not in a wild card, round, but a stage or two later, and you get that to happen a couple of times, now you got something, because on top of it, there's no doubt that these two teams will be linked because of the two quarterbacks. Although I even kind of think of the quarterback thing as more of an entire draft thing. The 2024 draft, because of the record number of quarterbacks selected, 6 in the top 12, I think that it's just all 6 of them will be ranked against each other for years to come. I understand who 1, 2 is, but I also understand who 3 is, and I understand who came after that. I know the order. So we'll compare all of them, and there will be others that will enter this Caleb versus Jaden conversation. Drake May will. I think Penix Jr. will. I mean, Bo Nix has already had a fair share of success. How about that game yesterday morning? We will get to that when we get to around the NFL. I don't think I've ever seen a worse quarterback performance than Justin Fields' performance. And the fact that the Jets covered, thankfully, is an all-time lucky cover, because they were horrendous on offense. I digress. No rivalry here for me, just a link between the two teams because of the two quarterbacks and because there will always be a famous play, a famous moment, a Hail Mary moment. But a Hail Mary moment does not a rivalry make, in my opinion. If you want to weigh in, you can do so. Just tweet me at Kevin Sheehan DC, and I'll read some of your tweets later. I don't feel this as a rivalry at all, and I think anybody that's doing it is either performative or just too young to know what a real rivalry is. There's never, ever going to be a rivalry, I don't think in my lifetime, like what we had with the Cowboys in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and even beyond. To this day, there's still something there. No rivalry outside of our division can touch what we have with the Giants or the Eagles. But, over a 25-year period, the Snyder era, we became less important to the teams in our division, and that hurt. And hopefully we can get that back. By the way, in thinking about getting some of that back, I was kind of hoping, weirdly, that Dallas would win and not cover, because I gave out Carolina, and I told you last week I thought Carolina could win that game yesterday, and it was a trap game for the Cowboys. But I was hoping the Cowboys would win by like a point or two. Washington wins tonight to set up sort of a big feel, early approaching midseason matchup. It is the game of the week at 4:25 this coming week between the Cowboys and the Skins in Jerry World, and I just thought that would have been fun to have that. But we're not going to. The Cowboys are 2-3-1 now. 2-3-1. They can't stop anybody. All right. How does Washington win this game tonight? I'll get to my keys when we come back. Keys to a win over the Chicago Bears on Monday Night Football. Not the only game tonight. There's a game that starts an hour earlier. It'll be the Falcons and the Bears. Falcons and Bills at 7:15. That's actually a very interesting matchup as well. Our game at 8:15, the Joe Buck Troy Aikman game at 8:15. Looking forward to it. My keys to beating the Bears tonight when we come back. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the team980.com. All right, keys to a win over the Chicago Bears tonight at Northwest Field, sellout crowd, 8:15 kick, alt black jerseys for a repeat of last year's look and feel against Chicago. By the way, I like the alt black jerseys, always have. I can't wait for our championship jerseys to appear. That first game of that appearance will be the Seattle game on Sunday Night Football.
Correct.
I think it is. But I don't mind the alt blacks. All right. Let me just tell you real quickly why I like this matchup and why I am concerned about this matchup. There are obvious things to like about this matchup against the Bears. Number one, they are 31st in the league in rush defense. Washington's number one in rush offense. The Bears are dead last in yards per carry allowed. They allow, this isn't stuttering here, although I just did, 6.2 yards per carry against them. 6.2 yards per carry. That's what teams average against them. Washington, the number one rush offense in yards per and in yards per carry. So this would seem like a matchup that, from that standpoint, gives Washington a huge advantage. I will just warn you that the Bears have only played 4 games, and 2 of them were against really good offensive football teams and teams that can run the football, Dallas and Detroit. And Detroit absolutely torched them. So that can skew things, as we know, in a small sample size. Ashton Genty also had his first big day. Then offensively, while Chicago so far through 4 games can't stop the run, they can't run the ball either. They're 26th in the league in yards per carry. They're 28th in rush EPA, expected points added. Okay, 28th. So when you can't run the ball and you can't stop the run, and you're playing a team who is the best in the league at running the ball and is vastly improved and rising in terms of their ability to stop the run, that just seems like, hello, mismatch in the trenches, running the ball, stopping the run. Well, what could go wrong? So I'll also add to the things about this matchup that make me like it is that Caleb Williams, and I went back and watched the last 2 games, the Cowboy game for them and the Raider game. There are some good things, but he's still a work in progress. And I don't think a bye week presents, a situation where he's got it all figured out tonight. It's a continuation of a development process with his new creative head coach, Ben Johnson. So I love this matchup, as we all should, because it's a great rush attack in our team against a terrible rush defense and a bad run offense against a vastly improved run defense. Usually you just look at that and you say, well, unless you throw 4 picks and fumble 7 times, you should be in good shape. Here's what I'm concerned about. I'm concerned about Ben Johnson. Man, is he creative. He's really creative. They are able to design explosive plays. Keep in mind, one of the things that made Ben Johnson's offenses successful in Detroit was the ability to run the football. That made it easier for Jared Goff. Jared Goff isn't a just straight drop back passer, no matter what kind of weapons he had in Detroit. And by the way, he's got some decent weapons in Chicago. You've got to run the football with, a Ben Johnson offense, and they haven't been able to do that. Until they do that, then it's hard to really judge Caleb Williams, because everything that he wants to do with Caleb Williams is based on the ability to remain balanced. With that said, without the ability to run the football in the first 4 games, he is creative, man. They create some plays. They create some explosives. It's amazing. And Cooley used to say this all the time. You don't really need to run the football that well for play action to work. And it's true. There is something about when that quarterback, fakes that give on 1st and 10 and goes back to pass. Everybody, whether you can run the football and have been successful running the football or not, everybody hesitates for a bit. Everybody plays run. play action is a quarterback's best friend, followed by a run game with play action, and a successful run game. He wants to run the football, but even without being able to do it, he's been able to draw up some real big-time explosive plays with their offense. And Ben and Caleb Williams, one thing you can't say about him is that he doesn't have arm strength, that he can't make every throw. I think he's inaccurate a lot and he misses a lot, but he does have a gun. There is no doubt about it. But when they ran the ball with Goff, in Detroit, it made everything else work, and they had tremendous talent. Of course, the big advantage in Detroit was they had a great offensive line. They don't have that right now in Chicago. I don't think their offensive line's that bad, but the run numbers would certainly suggest that it's not a good run-blocking offensive line. And if they're without Darnell Wright tonight, that could be an issue. We'll find out more from Courtney Cronin at 11. What I'm not concerned about is number one rush offense against one of the worst rush defenses. Terrible rush offense against a very vastly improved and continuing to rank higher and higher as a run defense in Washington. That would suggest mismatch. What I'm concerned about, Ben Johnson's creative as hell. He's a great play caller, and he's had a week to prepare for this game. He's had a week to get healthier. They're getting healthier. They're getting some defensive players back. They're getting back for this game. It looks like they're getting TJ Edwards and Kyle Gordon back at a minimum, two starters that they have not had. So a bye week, Ben Johnson getting healthier. That would be the concern. That would be the concern. But I do like this matchup for Washington. So let's get to the keys to beating the Bears. Number one is run the football. The matchup says you can run the football. Let me tell you something that I found very interesting, and I went back and looked at some of the numbers to sort of back it up, and it suggests the same. The Bears play a lot of man coverage. You can't do that against Jaden Daniels. You cannot do that against Jaden Daniels. You can do that against Jared Goff, which is who they faced in the opener. You can probably do that against J.J. McCarthy, or in the second game. You can probably do that against J.J. McCarthy in the opener because it's his first game. Dak, you can play some man-to-man defense. You can turn your back on Dak a little bit more now than you used to be able to do. You can do that a little bit with Geno. You cannot do it with Jaden Daniels. I'm going to be really interested to see if they're playing man defense with Jaden Daniels at quarterback, because they have essentially lined it up with their front four, and they've said, go get the quarterback. And by the way, that's after not stopping the run. So that's I'll get to that in a moment. But number one is you got to be able to run the football. Their best defensive players, number 49 is Tremaine Edwards. He's actually a good player. He's kind of had one of those careers that everybody expected a lot of, Buffalo, et cetera, Virginia Tech, the whole thing, first-round pick, right? Tremaine Edwards was a first-round pick, wasn't he? I think he was. Was he a first-round pick? Wasn't he like a super young first-round pick out of Virginia Tech? He was like, I want to say like 19 years old or something. 2018 first-round pick, 16th overall to Buffalo. All right, he's 27 now, so that's 7 years ago. He was 20, but I think he was actually 19 when they picked him in April. He's a good player. He's a really good player. And Terp fans, Ruben Hippolyte, a name we know well. He was an excellent player last year at Maryland. Number 47 shows up every time you watch the Bears. Now they're getting TJ Edwards back. They're getting Kyle Gordon back. No Jalen Johnson. One of the best shutdown corners in the game is on injured reserve. You don't face them. Dennis Allen, by the way, is their defensive coordinator. That's who Ben Johnson hired. I always felt like Dennis Allen could coach up defense, maybe not the head coach. But those teams in New Orleans where he was the head coach, they were pretty good defensively. You got to be able to run the football tonight, and I think they can. And if they can run the football, and then you can go play action against a four-man rush and man-to-man behind it, this has an opportunity to be a huge offensive night. Now, maybe they switch everything up. Maybe in the bye week, they're like, we're terrible against the run. We're playing too much man coverage. We can't play man coverage against Jaden Daniels. That's insanity to play a lot of man coverage against a quarterback like that. Maybe they switch it up completely, and maybe with them getting healthier tonight, we see a completely new Chicago defense. But I got to tell you, if we see the defense that they have played in the first 4 games, there's no reason why Washington shouldn't score 28 or more tonight. Easily 28 or more. One thing they do, and that leads me to number 2. So run the football is number 1, and everything off of running the football well will happen for them. Number 2 is the one thing Chicago's done, and they've gotten help from people like Geno Smith, is they've got 9 takeaways in 4 games. All right. There's only 3 teams that have more, and they've all played 5 or 6 games. So they're getting takeaways. Not all of them are forced. There were a couple of Geno balls that were up for grabs. But you can't turn the ball over against this team because that's kind of what's kept them alive. I mean, in the game against Vegas, Geno threw 3 picks in the game, and they ended up in the turnover category +3. They got 4 takeaways altogether. So that was the difference in a game they won by 1 point. They were +3 on the road against a team that we destroyed with Marcus Mariota. All right. And they were +3, and they needed, basically a late field goal to win the game. And then a blocked field goal to preserve the 25-24 win at the very end. So in that game, 4 turnovers and a blocked field goal at the very end of that game. That would be the one thing. You can't give the ball up. Washington's done a great job of protecting the football. We had the 1 fumble from Bill on against the Chargers. Don't turn the ball over, and you should be in good shape. The Bears don't really turn it over either. Caleb's, not getting sacked as much. He's not turning the ball over as much on the season. He's got just 2 interceptions through 4 games. Jaden's got 0 through 3 full games. But I think turnovers, will be massive in this game. It's the way, again, bye week, maybe we get a completely different Chicago team after the bye week defensively. But I would say, looking at this game, the one way for Chicago to legitimately have a chance to win this game is to win the turnover margin as they have. And so Washington's got to be protective of the football. Number 3 in this game is we've got to minimize the coverage mess-ups. I think Washington can stop the run. DeAndre Swift in the game last year was really the guy that got the comeback started. If you recall that game last year, it was low scoring, and Jaden wasn't, 100%, with the sore ribs. And in that game, it was ugly, but Washington was seemingly in control of the game, even though the score didn't necessarily feel that way, but it was like 12-0. And then late in the third quarter, DeAndre Swift rips off a 50-something yard touchdown run. And all of a sudden, it's 12-7. I think that stopping the run is something they've done well. I think they can do it again. But then it comes down to a creative offensive coordinator and a coverage situation that has been a mess. Let's be fair. It's been a mess for much of the season so far. Here's what I wrote down. So even though they can't run the football, they do scheme up some chunk plays, even with play action with no run game. And they do it with playmakers. Rome Odunze is looking really good in terms of the 2024 draft of receivers. 5 touchdowns on the season, 20 catches in 4 games. He is big and can run. 6'3", 215. He was one of Penix Jr.'s receivers at Washington. Rome Odunze is legit good. And then you've got DJ Moore. You've got Olamide Zaccheaus, Mr. Reliable. You got a guy in Luther Burden that his snap count seems to be going up, and he's a threat. They drafted him in the 2nd round out of Missouri. They've got the 2 tight ends. Loveland's been a bit banged up. Cole Kmet's still there, but they've got weapons in the pass game. So, coverage, pressure. They covered up the secondary issues last week with pressure. I think it'll be more problematic to do it tonight with pressure. The Chargers, how many times have we talked about over the years? It's not who you play, it's when you play them. They got the Chargers and the Raiders they got the Raiders at the perfect time. They got the Chargers at the perfect time. The Bears, maybe not the perfect time in terms of your ability to dominate defensively up front. We'll see. But the coverage on the back end has to be better. You've got to eliminate these coverage blow-ups, these coverage errors that are leading to big chunk plays. Easy pitch and catch. A guy like Ben Johnson, with the receiving core they have, will take advantage of it. That's really what I see as top three keys. Run the football against a team that has shown that they can't run it. And off of that, man, there should be big opportunities against man coverage with Jaden, by the way, as a scrambler. This could be a big scramble night for Jaden against the Bears. Last year, even though he was apparently sore from the ribs, 8 rushes, 52 yards, completely different team, understood. Threw for 326. The odd part of last year's game is that Washington only scored 18 points with 481 yards of offense and no turnovers. It was a weird outing altogether in that particular game last year. I think the same kind of offensive output, yardage-wise, quarterback-wise, Bill, Krosky merit-wise, is in play tonight. I don't see the Bears, unless they totally switch up or unless their additions from the injury list are big adds that really make a difference. I just don't see Washington being stopped that much tonight. I see 28 plus on offense, and if you don't turn the ball over, you can win. Then lastly, you just cannot give up chunk plays in the passing game. That'd be the concern, right? Is that Ben Johnson's smart? He's creative. Even without a run game, will he be able to scheme up Rome Odunze against our coverage, DJ Moore against our coverage? It is possible that the Bears end up getting some chunk plays tonight to keep them in it and to keep it close. Prediction later on in the show. 301-230-0980 if you want to weigh in right now. What are your keys to a win over Chicago tonight to get to 4-2, to put us, by the way, in a tie for first place in the division? And last night's Kansas City win over the Detroit Lions would mean, other than Tampa, we'd have the second best, be tied with the second best record in the NFC with a win tonight through 6 weeks. 301-230-0980. Want your ways, your keys to winning tonight against Chicago. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980, theteam980.com. We're free and live on the Odyssey app, and don't forget you can watch us on our Team 980 YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button when you get there.
All right, happy Monday, everybody. Here's what's happening. We take a look around the NFC East after an NFL Sunday yesterday. As we all know, the Giants defeated the Eagles on Thursday Night Football 34-17. And yesterday, the Dallas Cowboys, they fall to the Carolina Panthers on a walk-off field goal after Dallas's defense was walked down by Bryce Young in a 5-minute and 22-second drive that put them in field goal range. Again, Dallas falls 30-27. To baseball, the Mariners, they defeat the Blue Jays in Game 1 of the ALCS by a score of 3-1. Cal Raleigh hits his 62nd home run of the season to kickstart Seattle in the second inning. Plus, tonight, we got 2 Monday Night Football games on tap, starting with the Buffalo Bills taking on the Atlanta Falcons. That kick will be at 7:15. And tonight, your Washington Commanders, they take on the Chicago Bears on Monday Night Football. The injury report for Washington, Terry McLaurin and Noah Brown already ruled out. Sam Cosmi, returning from the 21-day practice window, is listed as doubtful, and Deebo Samuel should be ready to go. He was on the injury report this week with a bruised heel injury, but again, Tom Pelissero says he should be good to go. This update is sponsored by the Team 980 YouTube page. Just open the app, type of the Team 980, hit subscribe. Kevin Sheehan is live every day from 10 to 1. You can catch Denton's office throughout all football season. Don't forget to hit the like button whenever you do decide to join us, and turn on notifications to stay up to date on all things DC sports. And that is what's trending.
Get a Monday Night Football game, the first of two this month. There will be one at Arrowhead a little bit later on in the month, like 2 weeks from tonight. Crazy, right? Washington going Monday nighter against Chicago, big Sunday game in Dallas, and then another Monday nighter 2 weeks from tonight at Arrowhead against the Chiefs. That is shaping up to be a potential big game, but you got to take care of business tonight. And taking care of business is a bit condescending to the Bears because the Bears are certainly capable. Every NFL team is, especially early in the season, especially off 2 wins, and especially when you've got a break, a bye week. But I think right now, in looking at this matchup, unless the Bears come out completely different than they have defensively in their first 4, Washington should have the opportunity to put up points if they don't turn the ball over. I mean, 28 plus in this game. It feels like a big opportunity for a big offensive night. Keys for me, run the football, best rush offense against basically the worst yards per carry defense against the run in the league. They're allowing 6.2. Yeah, they played Detroit and they played Dallas. I understand they played some good offensive teams, but they should be able to run the football. And then what comes off of running the football against the Bears, who have played a ton of man coverage, you can't play man coverage against Jaden, can you? You really can't. You've got to play with eyes on the quarterback, which is more zone coverage. But I think run the football tonight and could be a huge game offensively. Certainly, I would expect the Bears to have something different defensively tonight against the run. And they're getting some health. They're getting some players back, as I mentioned. Don't turn it over. The Bears have 9 takeaways in 4 games, and it's their way tonight to stay in this game. You know, they need, I think, Washington to be a bit self-inflicted in terms of, you know, helping them out with turnovers, with penalties, all of those things. But the Bears, 9 takeaways in 4 games. Not all of them have been forced. Gino gave them a couple, but don't turn it over. And then lastly, minimize coverage busts. Ben Johnson, he'll scheme it up with the best of them. And he's probably licking his chops with some of, you know, the plays he believes will work against the secondary in our, you know, for our team, which has, let's face it, been a bit of a mess through 5 games. He can fool you, you know, when you're good, let alone you're struggling. So that would be a concern. Of course, you can fix that with really good pass rush. I don't know that we'll see the kind of pass rush we saw against the Chargers tonight. I think Chicago's a better pass block team than the Chargers are. All right, 301-230-0980. Paulie's going to kick it off instead of finishing it up for us tonight. Go ahead.
L to the W, big guy, yeah.
What's up?
Lead off spot, Ricky Henderson style, baby.
Yeah, get on base, hey. And then you get on base, and then you're on third.
Hey, listen, no, I'm hitting it out the park. Run the ball, stop and run. You know, feed Shaq and let Kobe go to work, man. Commit to the running game. Not just run the ball. Commit to the running game. All right? Defense. Listen, last year, we had Caleb dead to rights on a couple of sacks and couldn't get him to the ground.
Right.
They got to get him to the ground. Do not let him, you know, go willy-nilly outside of the pocket because that's how he likes to play. All right, so we got to get pressure on him, keep him in the pocket, get him to the ground, man. And I got us pulling off a 34-20 victory.
Like it. Thank you from Paulie, 757. Let's go to Chris in Delaware. Chris, go ahead. How do they beat the Bears tonight?
Hey, Kev, thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
Kind of like what Paulie said, kind of piggybacking. Caleb Williams is the key for them. Obviously, he's the distributor. Early on, if you're able to get to him, get him on the ground, get him out of his rhythm, Ben Johnson could draw up the best game plan imaginable. And I haven't watched any Bears game, but I imagine he's had some good game plans. Williams will improvise in the worst way possible for him, as long as you get him rattled, get him on the ground. So at the end of the day, turnovers are going to be the key. If Williams has a boom game, we're going to be in trouble. If he has a bust game, we're going to win the game 30-17. It's going to be a 13-point game if we do what we need to do from a turnovers perspective.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it. Yeah, see, the difference with what Ben Johnson's trying to accomplish with Caleb Williams is he's trying to accomplish turning Caleb into much more of a distributor, much more of a Jared Goff with the extra dimension of mobility and arm strength and off platform and off schedule, etc. But, here's a guy that has taken far fewer sacks at the percentage that he was taking them last year. Ball's coming out faster, even though there are times in which you'll see you're like, shouldn't that ball have been out? I'm not sitting there watching the Bears all 22. But this is going to be for them. It's strange that there's such a bad run offense and yet play action works. It's one of those oddities about, the NFL. Like, you have to run the ball for play action to work. You don't necessarily have to run the football. Play action seems to work as long as that ball fake's a really good one and a strong one, and your quarterback has ball handling skills and the ability to really sell it. And that's what they are better at doing. He's a better distributor so far than he was last year. Let's go to Owen. Owen's calling from Dallas. Owen, go ahead. How did they beat the Bears tonight?
Hey, what's up? What's up, Kevin? Good morning. I think the two biggest things that I'm thinking about, similar to Paulie and the caller before, is definitely establishing the running game. We need to have the same game plan that we had against the Raiders, just fully committing to the run. When we come out with all these cute plays on 1st and 10, like how many games have we been 3 and out on the first drive this year? Probably 3 out of the 5, if I'm thinking correctly. So we can't
certainly the last 2 games. I know that, and I would imagine the Green Bay game was the same. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's so frustrating, and we need to get out to a fast start because our offense has been proven that if we don't get out to a fast start and we don't get momentum early, we kind of be lackadaisical until the second quarter, third quarter. So that's a big thing. The next thing is setting the edge. Need to have strong commitment here because Caleb Williams is going to scramble. I think this is probably going to be the biggest test we've had against a mobile quarterback this year. So I think, really setting the edge, making sure that he can't get out the pocket. And if he does, we corner him in and we tackle him to the sidelines. So I think those are the two biggest things and give Caleb zero confidence.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of view Caleb as scrambling ability right there with Justin Herbert. They definitely have excellent scrambling capability. Herbert's is probably a little bit underrated. He had the 41-yard run, remember, last week. Thanks for that, Owen. Let's go to Billy. Billy, go ahead. Keys to beating Chicago tonight.
Kevin, I was in Vegas this weekend watching because we didn't have a game. All the different games, the officiating is just abhorrent in this league. They got to do something about it, right, Kevin? Tell me.
But what are the keys to beating the Bears, Billy? I mean, we could sit here and talk about your weekend. I'm actually interested in your weekend. But what are the keys to beating the Bears?
The Potomac tribe here on Indigenous Peoples Day for the former Redskins Commanders football team. You got to stop the run. You make Caleb one-dimensional. We're going to put up at least 60 on this team tonight. Can't wait 60. To see it.
60. That would be, 73 would be apropos. Thank you, Billy. Bay and D.C. Bay, what are the keys to beating the Bears tonight?
Good morning, Kevin. Man, I love your show. I appreciate you, man. Please, Kevin, can you please stop making excuses for other teams' injuries? We got injuries all over the place. I don't give a flying flip about who they don't have and what they don't have.
You don't?
Play what we
I think most. First of all, let's get one thing clear. Let's get one thing clear. Nobody's making excuses. Injuries are a reality, Bay. They are the reality more than anything else in the league. So you may not be interested, but I think a lot of people are interested in what the Bears haven't had and what they may be getting back, like with our team. We've been an injured team as well. We've talked about it every week. Do you not want us to talk about injuries at all? Would you rather this be an injury-free show?
Kevin, Doc said every day you play with who's getting paid.
Yeah, but
not ready.
So we are talking about who's going out there tonight and who isn't out there tonight. It makes a difference, Bay. It makes a difference.
Not out there, Cosme not out there.
Yeah.
You ain't said nothing about them, dude.
You think if Pat Mahomes wasn't playing last night, that might be a part of the conversation? Or
including
it
the
shouldn't
refs,
be.
it would be. Yeah, including
Silly.
the refs, yeah, it would be. But
Yeah,
all
thanks.
I'm saying is, Kev, all we have to do is run the ball, period. Run
Right.
the ball, set up the pass. That's all we have to do to win against this fraudulent team, period.
Love your calls, Bay. Thanks. Let's go to Junie. Junie, go ahead. How do they beat the Bears tonight?
Hey, what's up, Kevin?
What's up, Junie?
Hey, cool. Hey, one of my keys to the game is probably this. I know football is 4 quarters, but the first quarter of this game right here is kind of big to me. We have to come out, whatever game plan we got to come and it got to be clicking off the rip. We can't go through the first quarter and we only ran off 6 plays and accumulated 22 yards and only had
Like last, yeah. That wouldn't be the ideal start, true. But they overcame it last week, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. But it's been games, Green Bay, other games that we didn't overcome it. But
yes,
I say if Chicago comes out and punch our defense in the mouth, our offense got to turn right around and punch their defense in the mouth. And if we set the tone and boss up out the gate, everything else, I say will fall into play. We got to set the tone. And
we got to set the tone. Like Quan Martin said last week, violence solves everything. That should have been my number one key. Thanks, Junie. DC Clay, finish it up for us.
All right. There's a caller that called a couple of calls ago, and he was saying what I'm about to say right now. The key, number one key is we're playing a top 5 offense finally at home. The key to this game is if the fans can bring the noise and can upset that offense of Chicago, that gives us a great advantage. The second key is we have
Chicago's a top 5 offense per what?
Top 5 offensive line. We haven't beaten a team with a top 10 offensive line all season, and we finally play one at home. The second key is
hold on. Let me make sure that I don't offend our guy Bay. They may actually be missing a key piece on their offensive line, which could help out. But we'll pretend I didn't say that. Go ahead. Take advantage of their offensive line. It's not been a good offensive team, but I understand your point. I don't know if they're top 10 offensive line. They are in some of the pass block win rate and run block win rate. But when you watch them, it's a bit strange that they're rated that highly along their offensive line. But to your point, it's a better offensive line than we faced against the Chargers, against the Raiders, and against the Giants, no doubt, in the 3 games that we've won.
And there's the second key. The second key is our defense cannot defend speed. What does Chicago have?
They got a bunch of it. They got good route runners too.
Bunch of speed. That's why their offensive line gets rated highly as well, due to the speed and the uncomfortableness that speed places on defenses in their secondary. So that's all I'm going to say is DMV, bring the noise. DMV,
thanks, DC. Thanks, Clay. Appreciate it. I got to get to a break. Yeah, I mean, no doubt that would be. I could certainly see Chicago scoring points tonight, definitely. But I'd be surprised if we don't move the football and score plenty ourselves. Courtney Cronin covers the Bears for ESPN. She'll join us next. By the way, Max and I were looking at the receivers from last year's draft, the 24 draft. After Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, Rome Odunze, Brian Thomas Jr., he's had some issues with drops this year, Xavier Worthy, Ricky Pearsall, Xavier Leggett, Keon Coleman, Ladd McConkey. That takes you into the early portion of the second round. The receiver draft in 2024, pretty good. Let's hope Luke McCaffrey joins that crew. Joining me right now is Courtney Cronin. Courtney's covered the Bears for a few years for ESPN, at Courtney R. Cronin on X, on Twitter. Courtney does a great job on ESPN, sometimes as the lead host of some of the shows, including Get Up and some of the other shows. But she is the John Keim of the Chicago Bears, and she joins us right now here on the Team 980. So I want to go back to the Hail Mary. You know, there are people, Courtney, that actually suggest like this is a play along with the quarterbacks, you know, going 1-2 that somehow has started, you know, a rivalry of sorts. I don't see it that way. How do you see it?
I mean, the game will always be remembered for what happened on that final play. I don't know if it started a rivalry, so to speak. It certainly did very different things to both teams. And what happened last season is you had one who let that torpedo the season, which is the Bears. And obviously we know what happened with Washington going to the NFC Championship game. But, you know, it'll always be like more than a footnote. It's not just like, oh, this happened. Like it was a pretty significant moment in the overall book of the 2024 NFL season that looks really good for one team and really bad for another. And I don't think it'll ever be more than that, as something like, you know, obviously is it a point of motivation for the Bears tonight to never let something like that happen again, to return to the scene of the crime, so to speak? Yeah, it is. But I don't think they view it as like, we hate Washington because of this. Like it was their own screw up. It was their own head coach giving Jaden Daniels 13 yards the play before he launched the 52-yard Hail Mary. Like it's not Washington's fault that the Bears were in that situation. It was their own. And I think that that's like the self-inflicted mistakes of last year and the snowball effect of that one game caused. I think is something that they use as, you know, a song cry to never let happen again.
You know, good reminder there. And I just remember Eberflus's response. He was clueless to the play before the Hail Mary, the easy, you know, pitch and catch out for 14 yards to Terry McLaurin that got them into position where Jaden could reach the end zone on the Hail Mary. That was such a significant play in what ultimately happened. You know, for those of us here, we know from afar that was the first of like just a total season implosion. They went on to win. They went on to lose 10 in a row. People may forget Chicago came into Washington last year as a 4-2 football team off of 3 straight wins. You lived it, covering it. How bad was it? Just talk about post Hail Mary, what happened to Chicago's season.
Well, they went to Arizona the next week, and I was on sideline for that game, and they were listless. Like you could not come up with a more lackluster performance than the one we saw. I think the game was 29-9. Caleb Williams tweaks his ankle in the fourth quarter of that game when he should not have been playing. DJ Moore leaves the field early in the middle of a play. Like it was just like, if you didn't think the wheels were falling off, like it was, you know, they'd be able to flush that game. To me, Arizona was a signifier of, oh, this is bad. Like this is, you know, you're going to have coaches fired here soon. You're going to have more losses pile up, but they are not capable, mature enough, equipped enough, veteran-led enough to put this behind them. And then it was the New England game where Caleb gets sacked 9 times and Shane Waldron gets fired the next day. You get a little bit of a jolt when Thomas Brown comes in and they are right there in 3 division games. But then, of course, Thanksgiving happens and Eberflus gets fired. It was just like, it was whiplash because it's like we were 4-2. That's what they're thinking. And it shows probably a little bit of how fraudulent that record was because they beat the Rams at a very different time. Like the Rams were a very different team at that time. They beat the Jags in London. Like they were not a true solid, on solid ground 4-2 team. They were a team that had a lot of holes, you know, in personnel, no pass rush. The offense left a lot to be desired. The offensive line was terrible. there was just so much there that set up to, oh, I understand why that happened the way that it did, that it could take one thing like that to completely break the spirit of that team. And they'll deny it. They'll say, oh, well, we tried to band together. We tried to do all we could. Like, the results spoke for themselves. Like, they were there in 1-score games until they weren't. And I think that was the thing. Like, a tougher team, a team that had more of a callus to it, would have been able to get on the right side of some of those 1-score games. The Bears had multiple opportunity week after week, and they didn't. Like, that's just the problem. It was coaching, it was player execution, it was everything.
So what is the level of optimism? Where is it right now on Caleb Williams versus at the end of last year where there was a lot of skepticism, even though it was kind of unfair that he ended up being with a coach that for all intents and purposes went into the season as a lame duck?
Yeah, and he, it's interesting now. You look at all 6 of the quarterbacks who were drafted in Caleb Williams' draft, Jaden Daniels' draft class. They all now are paired with a coach who speaks the quarterback language and can develop a young quarterback. Cliff Kingsbury's done it with Jaden. Sean Payton, obviously, with Bo Nix. What we're seeing right now, too, when J.J. McCarthy comes back with Kevin O'Connell. But there's a lot of, Caleb was the last one to the party, which is kind of crazy to think about. He's the number 1 overall pick, yet you didn't have the right pairing from the jump. Now he has that. So I think his development, while it's been, marginal at times, it's not these huge jumps week to week, is starting to hit its stride, because what he did in that Raiders game, the last time the Bears were on the field in week 4, was something that he did in Washington. And then we don't remember. I mean, I know you said that people forget about, some of the other things that happened in that game. Do they remember that he led a game-winning drive? They never had the lead all game until that final 10-play, 62-yard drive. They convert on the 2-point attempt and then the Hail Mary. But he did that in Washington last year, and that wasn't enough. And he did it in the Raiders game, and it was enough. And I think that that's where his growth's coming the most, where he can shake off bad starts. He can shake off throwing some bad balls early on. He's not throwing interceptions because he is more turnover averse than most quarterbacks. But he's growing in a system that's forcing him to play in structure. They want him to paint outside the lines in 2-minute mode. That's when he's at his best. That's great. But everything else, I think he's really taking to the coaching, the accountability, and being in an offense that's going to make him be something that he was never really had to do at the collegiate level. And that's how he's going to have a long career in this league. If he can play within structure, but also then break into Superman mode when he needs to, that's the trajectory here for Caleb.
What about the other stuff, Courtney? Like some of the stories in the offseason that were written about, some of the issues that coaches last year and the staff were having. Where is he, personally, comfort level here in year 2 with this new staff?
So I remember his season-ending press conference after Green Bay, where he was asked about leadership, and he's like, I'm going to be so much more equipped to lead this team in year 2 because I've had a year of experience. I'll be older. And I think for him last year, with as many vets as he had, around him, Mercedes Lewis at tight end, Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, in my perspective, I think that Caleb, I don't want to say was intimidated by that, but I think that's a really hard room to lead on offense when you're struggling. When you're the young guy, the number 1 overall pick, and there's a promise that comes with that. If you're not good, if you struggle, then it's probably really hard to tell guys what to do, how to do it, and how to survive through a 10-game losing streak. So I think for him, it's almost like a sigh of relief that, okay, I'm a year older. I have some, I have a stake in this now. I've got a dog in the fight, and I can stand up for the type of leadership that the leader I want to be. And that, there's more comfort in that when you don't feel like you're speaking out of turn or, getting something before you're fully equipped to handle it. That to me is one of the biggest areas of growth for him, where we saw it in training camp. There'd be times where receivers, young receivers like Luther Burden, wouldn't know what the motion was, and Caleb's the one getting him, into gear. And that shows not only just retention of the offense, because they are throwing a lot more at him than any other point of his career, but there's that element of it. He's a better leader, and he's more equipped to handle an offense that requires a lot, because the whole thing that came out in Seth Wickersham's book was that he didn't know how to watch film on his own, or he didn't feel coaches put him in a good position to do that. And of course, you're hearing one side of that. You're hearing it from Caleb and his camp and their perspective that he was set up for failure. And then, of course, there was, I think, Tyler Dunn's article focused on the other side of it, which is the coaches saying this guy is uncoachable. And it's the truth, Kevin's somewhere in the middle, as it always is. But, I think for Caleb, like, you put that out there. You can't have that. That's no longer an excuse because now you will have the tools. They do have Case Keenum there, who's kind of the quarterback. He's kind of a pseudo quarterback coach for these guys because they had 4 games of starting experience outside of Caleb in that room last year. That was untenable. So they're giving him all the things that he needs to be successful. And based on some of the things you heard about him in the offseason, those would no longer be valid excuses if they were used as such now.
Yeah, I mean, it's so true that, it's the his side, her side. The truth lies somewhere in the middle. It seems to be the case in almost anything in life, let alone, in conversations about quarterbacks and sports figures. But, I want to do what we always do, which is, try to predict, a hunch right now. It seems like before the season started, there were a lot of NFL pundits who said, yeah, I don't see it working out. 4 games into the Ben Johnson year, where do you see this long term? Does it work out? Him, number one, becoming a legitimate, upper tier starting quarterback in this league or not?
It's hard to say because we have a 4-game sample size and there's still a lot of work to do on this offense. And I know that's not a great answer to a question where you're supposed to project, but like here's the nuance here. Ben Johnson said he came to Chicago in big reason because he gets to work with Caleb Williams, but he didn't draft Caleb Williams. So he has that built-in fail-safe. If it doesn't work out, he can get his own quarterback. And we know that teams, because they want to win on a rookie contract, they won't have that much longer to figure it out, like if Caleb's the guy or not. And so if they can fast track it, great. Then he's got his guy and it will work out and they will eventually be a playoff team in a very crowded division, which even with Detroit losing last night, it's still a very hard division to go through. But I think the structure part to me, like if he wants to play in this game and play this game at a long time at this level, being able to not revert back to old habits that made him so great at USC and Oklahoma, but like that's stuff that you just can't out athlete players in the NFL with anymore. Like that's where the growth that's what's going to give him a long career, playing within structure, being a pocket passer, taking what the defense gives you, finding the check down, not always looking for the big play, not going in hero mode. Like that to me is more than anything else the determining factor for Caleb Williams in this thing working out, because Ben's got a pretty structured offense. It's a very creative offense, throws a lot at the quarterbacks, but if Caleb can continue to show that he's getting it, then it can be a long-term marriage and it can be good for the entire organization to say they finally did it. They finally got a franchise quarterback that they drafted and developed.
Talking to Courtney Cronin. Courtney covers the Bears for ESPN. So 4 games in and a bye week heading into this Monday night game tonight. So what have they been through 4 games? What do they do well? What don't they do well?
They don't stop the run well, which obviously going to Washington is not a great trend to carry into this game. They're giving up the 2nd most rushing yards a game. And these are like big chunk yards. They did it with Ashton Genty, Javonte Williams the week before that. So certainly with Krosky Merritt tonight, if that's going to be something that, that could determine how the game goes. They don't run the ball well either. I know I'm starting kind of like with all of the knocks against them, but that's a serious problem. And it shows you an area that they didn't address enough in the offseason, coming back to kind of haunt them right now, where I think they've succeeded here. Early on, the takeaways are still there. They're coming in bunches. They came in bunches in the Vegas game. They came in bunches in the Dallas game. Even with Dak Prescott playing, they were still forcing turnovers and interceptions. But like on the offensive side of the ball, I think Caleb and the distribution, like getting a lot of different guys involved. You've seen Rome Odunze ascend, which is great. Like he was 9th overall pick last year. Like he should be your leading receiver and your alpha and your number one. And seeing some other guys, I mean, Luther Burden has shown some flashes, Colston Loveland when he's been injured, but when he's been out there, you see the makings of this guy could be a nice hybrid receiver at that tight end position, worthy of a 10th overall pick to be in your offense. So there's those things. I think the passing game, for all the penalties they've had, which are a lot, and that's a huge storyline going into tonight, like they've been able to overcome some of those things, and it's required Caleb at times to get into a drop back passing game, and he's succeeded with that. And small sample size again, but being able to close out games and close out opponents, whereas last year you weren't able to do that. They showed you at least they could do it one time. So carrying that over into coming off the bye where they have not been good, 2-10 since 2013, in the post Lovie Smith era coming out of the bye. It would go a long way for the team tonight if they can do those things and get a win on the road.
How good has Ben Johnson been in terms of being able to scheme up some offense without a running game? He wants to run the football, and I was talking about this earlier in the show. The Detroit creativity, and he had a lot of it, was based on their ability to run the football with a great offensive line, for sure. How has he been able to generate some of the offense that they've generated without one?
It's been really tough. I mean, like they've tried to hang with it. The offensive line really hasn't been as much of a problem. When you think run game, you think, oh, maybe the holes aren't opening up. DeAndre Swift is getting hit behind the line of scrimmage, or hit at the line of scrimmage. The yards before contact are not very good. So that's more of a running back problem. And the screen game's non-existent right now. So there isn't a way to manufacture yards off of that. I think it's just been he's trying to force this thing through for as long as it'll go with DeAndre Swift. And that's fine until it's not. So we'll see. Ultimately what this points to is what their priority is in the offseason. And that's going to get a running back, whether it's in free agency, whether it's in the draft, because he's going to want to create a room like he had with Montgomery and Gibbs. They were not just running backs. They're a big part of the passing game. And that's, gave them the blueprint to continue doing that in Detroit. So I think it's a really, if they can't, I don't know how much better it's going to get. And he's been able to just get by with it for now. But, when you face premier pass rushers like Max Crosby and you'd like to be able to lean on the ground game and you can't, then you kind of get this disjointed thing like we saw in Vegas, which was doing just enough to be able to win. That's not sustainable, and they know it, though.
They're healthier tonight, right? Getting some players back on defense?
Yeah, they've got TJ Edwards, who hasn't played since week 2. He re-aggravated a hamstring injury. He's back, so that could help with the run. Kyler Gordon, nickel corner, makes his 2025 debut. He had a hamstring injury, was supposed to go week 1, came in with tightness, put him out for more than a month. He's back. And Darnell Wright, their starting right tackle, who had an elbow injury, will be back. So I'm really curious to see with the offensive line shuffle, since they're going to have a new left tackle tonight after Braxton Jones was benched. Who's inactive, what the numbers game is here. Does Ozzie Trapillo end up being your swing tackle? He's your second round pick from this year. Is it Braxton Jones being inactive? There's a lot there that I think, health wise, they got, nobody wants the early bye, but when you have a new head coach, new offense, and a lot of injuries, I think it gives you a good time to reassess. And that's, for their sake, that's what they hope that they did well enough to carry into this game.
All right, last one, and I appreciate the time. You wrote about Tyreek Stevenson last week. I actually pulled some of the quotes out of your story to talk about it. Tyreek Stevenson, for those who don't remember, was the Chicago Bear defensive back number 29 who was jawing at the crowd as Jaden was running around creating time to throw the Hail Mary, and got back just in time to tip the ball to Noah Brown for the game winner. That's one of those moments in a young person's life that's really hard. Talk about what he went through and then how he's, I think, rebounded to play pretty well this year.
He has, rebounding from a bad start. He was allowing a perfect passer rating into his coverage against Detroit, and that was week 2. And to be able to then put the Dallas performance together and then carrying it into the interception that he had, which was incredibly athletic, he just stretches out for that thing against the Raiders. He's gone through a lot the last year, and I think there's been a level of accountability and owning it and knowing, being okay saying, yeah, it hurts. People were really mean, and there was I asked him about, in context of what we've seen this year with the DeMarcado thing last week, sometimes players it's a culmination of a lot of things over 60 minutes. But when you are the player who is blamed for the one thing that loses the game for your team, like that's a lot. That's a lot to shoulder for a year because he's a third-year player now. That's attached to him for life. And I think him being able to understand that, like, it's never going to go away, but I need to do what I need to do to put better film out there of me as a player. So this becomes a footnote in my story as opposed to, what defined his career. That's where he is right now. And, he told us like he silver lininged it last week, being like, this might've been the best thing for me. Because I wouldn't have changed what I was doing. He's right. He plays with a lot of emotion, a very physical player, like a lot of those South Florida guys do, but it became reckless last year. And you sometimes have to touch the stove. And he did. And he found out how quickly he got burned by that. And, better to learn in year 2 than I would say like 10 years into your career, something happens and it tarnishes your legacy. Like he was just getting started and he's played some good football since then this year. So I think that's a positive place for him to be in going into this game.
Enjoyed it as always. Thanks for doing this. Have a good night tonight. Talk soon. Thanks, Courtney.
Thanks, Kevin. Take care.
Courtney Cronin, everybody, covers the Bears for ESPN at Courtney R. Cronin on X on Twitter. All of our NFL talk here on this show presented by Paramount Plus. You can't count on much, but you can always count on Sundays with the NFL on CBS and Paramount Plus. Watch your local NFL game live every Sunday all season long. Visit ParamountPlus.com/NFL to get started today. Speaking of the NFL, we'll go around yesterday's NFL card when we come back. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the Team980.com.
The biggest plays and clutch moments.
Oh, look out! Touchdown! A miracle!
It's time to go around the NFL.
Decision of his coaching career so far here in Carolina. Fitzgerald for the win. It is good. The Panthers upset the Cowboys for one of Dave Canales' biggest wins as the headband for the Panthers.
Let me just mention this right now. I think Dave Canales can coach, and I think that he's an excellent quarterback guy. He's the guy that really was responsible for kind of rejuvenating not Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield or Geno Smith? Why am I blanking? Geno Smith, right? He was in Seattle first. Geno Smith, one of those two. Do you know that last drive that
Canales
resulted?
was Tampa. It was Baker.
It was Baker.
It
was Baker. But was he in Seattle before, briefly with Geno, in Geno's breakout years, the quarterback coach? Look that up. I think that's right. The Carolina Panthers, they burned the last 6 minutes and 7 seconds of the game on a 15-play, 71-yard drive before that walk-off field goal. It included a 4th and 4 with 2:31 to go at the Dallas 40-yard line. They could have tried the field goal there. Apparently, he had the leg from 57. But if he misses, you're giving the Cowboys the ball at midfield, and they're already in Brandon Aubrey range. But he went for it, and Young completed a pass to Renfro, and then they were in run-out-the-clock mode before that field goal. Dallas has, we know this now, okay? We're now 6 games into the season, and you can start to say, all right, we're starting to learn things. If you didn't know already, Dallas stinks on defense. They are legit horrible on defense. Rico Dowdle's revenge game. How about 30 carries, 183 yards, and another 4 catches for 56 yards? Rico Dowdle now in the last 2 games has 389 yards rushing. 74 yards in pass receptions, too. He's good. He was good in Dallas. They screwed up by not making him a bigger feature of what they wanted to do. This felt all week, as I talked about last week, like one of those games that smelled like a trap game for the Cowboys. I thought the Jet game was. I was wrong about that a week ago. Bryce Young, solid. When you can run the ball for 216, you better have a good passing day. 3 touchdowns throwing it for him. Meantime, the Cowboy offense is still super lethal. They're just not getting enough plays because they can't get off the field. They had 12 fewer offensive snaps in the game. Prescott, 261, throwing it 3 more touchdowns, a ridiculous QBR. One of the things they could not do, though, against the Panthers, and the Panthers are a little bit sneaky good in this area, they are stopping the run. Let me give you an example. Carolina, by the way, just so everybody understands, they're 3-3. Against Miami, they held the Dolphins to 19 yards on 14 rushing attempts. Yesterday against the Cowboys, the Panthers held the Cowboys to 31 yards on 19 rushing attempts. That's about as lights out rushing defense-wise as you can get in 2 games. It's impossible to basically hold teams in back-to-back games to less than 2 yards per carry. Carolina, are they an interesting team at 3-3? They play the Jets next week to get to 4-3 if they can win that game. The NFL, man, you just never, ever know. You cannot early in the season declare anybody dead or anybody as a part of the Super Bowl picture, although I will with the team before this segment is up. The Cowboys fall to 2-3-1. They host Washington next week. Washington, short week coming in. Cowboys, this will be must win for Dallas here early in the season, right? They can't fall to 2-4-1 and watch Washington potentially go to 5-2 if Washington can win. The Skins are early 2.5-point favorites. Let's go to Arrowhead for Sunday Night Football.
Searching, cuts across with a touchdown to Hollywood Brown for the second time in the second half.
This game last night, the way it started in the first half, I thought for sure I was watching, and I know it's still relatively early. I thought for sure I was watching the two best teams in the NFL. Detroit down the field, and then they got bungled up on a fourth down throw to Jared Goff for a touchdown on a play where he didn't stop. He had to stop. He couldn't go in continuous motion once he was the quarterback, so they got called for an illegal shift, and then ended up kicking a field goal. It was long drive field goal, long drive touchdown for KC, long drive touchdown for Detroit. Then on downs, the Chiefs got stopped. Then on downs, the Lions got stopped. Then touchdown, and it was 13-10 at half, and you're like, man, these are two damn good football teams. And I think they are. Like, I just said you can't declare anybody dead early in the season, and we're still not at the halfway mark. But right now, if I had to wager on a Super Bowl matchup, was forced to wager on a Super Bowl matchup, this would be the matchup, the game I saw last night. Two good teams, two well-coached teams, two teams who, by the way, sorry, Bay, the Chiefs are getting healthier. They'll get Rashee Rice back here shortly. By the way, with the Chiefs, last night the Chiefs became the first team in, listen up, 55 years to have a game in which they won with 0 turnovers, 0 penalties, and no more than 1 punt in the football game. Now, for those of you that say the Chiefs get every call in the book, there were only 4 penalties called against the Lions in the game. The Chiefs won it 30-17. They're 3-3. I don't know, man. They have put together these last 4 games. They got beat by the Jags on Monday night. They did, on an insane, goal to go pickup after falling down Trevor Lawrence and running it into the end zone. I like them. That's going to be fun. I really hope we can get to 5-2 going into Arrowhead in 2 weeks. They play the Raiders this week at home before playing Washington on Monday Night Football. The story in this game, by the way, was the post-game fight between Juju Smith Jr. and Brian Branch. Brian Branch felt like he had taken an unnecessary blindside in the game, and then instead of shaking Juju Smith-Schuster's hand, he threw a punch. Apparently, it messed up Juju Smith-Schuster's nose. It didn't look like that big of a punch. But anyway, Brian Branch, who is one hell of a player, look for him to get fined and maybe even suspended a game for the Lions. Jalen Carter got thrown out, of that game for spitting before it ever started. I think a punch post-game. The NFL has had a strict sportsmanship emphasis this year. I'd be surprised if Brian Branch doesn't get, at least a 1-game suspension. Let's go to Tampa for Baker Mayfield's incredible performance again.
2nd and 11. Going for a big ball. Down the field. Got an open target. Oh, what a catch! Touchdown, Tampa Bay! Taz Johnson has his first NFL touchdown and a magnificent flip to go with it.
I don't know about you guys, but Baker Mayfield's easy to root for. He's, a guy who's had such an interesting career, number one overall in 2018, got stuck in purgatory with the Browns, then got, hardly a reprieve by going to Carolina, and then just 5 games with Sean McVay seemed to turn it all around. And here in Tampa, he is lights out. He is 12 touchdowns, over 1 interception this year, throwing 66.2% completion percentage, 1,539 yards through 6 games. So he's well on his way to a 4,400 type of year again. He is a legit MVP candidate, if not close to a front runner at this point. The Bucs have the best record in the NFC now with a 5-1 record. A lot of close wins on those 5 wins. Yesterday was a pretty competitive game. They put it away with a field goal late, up 27-19. Mac Jones was wrecked by Todd Bowles' defense. 6 sacks, 2 picks in the game. They also lost Warner in the game, a massive loss. The 49ers just year in and year out. And again, injuries a reality and massively impactful to seasons and to games, and the 49ers are feeling it. Tampa Bay's 5-1 with a lot of weapons. They play, how about this one, next Monday night in another doubleheader-ish kind of Monday Night Football. The Lions in Detroit. Is that a preview of the NFC Championship game, or will our team be involved in one of those games with Detroit a little bit later on in the season? Tampa rolling at 5-1 winners, 30-19 over the 49ers. Let's go to Baltimore for their game against the Rams.
Henry, straight give. He is stopped. The Rams are all over it with Jared Verse, and they take over.
Yeah, Baltimore tried for fourth downs 6 times in this game. They were 2 for 6. They were more competitive. This game was 3-3 at halftime, and then you got into some turnovers, and it led to 14 quick points for the Rams. They win it 17-3. A better effort for Baltimore altogether. The Rams lost Puka Nacua in this game. I don't know if it's serious. If it is, that is a major blow. It's an ankle injury. He did come back, but we'll see how healthy he is. After Puka Nacua was essentially averaging, through the first 5 games, over 10 catches per game, he had just 2 for 28 yards against the Ravens. But they got a much-needed win, and again, not who you play, but when you play them, taking advantage of a depleted Ravens team. They've got an interesting London game this coming Sunday against the Jags. That's a big one for the Rams because that NFC West, man, is bunched up. The NFC West, 3 teams at 4-2. The Niners, Seahawks, and Rams, and the Cardinals were nearly 4-2. But let's talk about the Rams' next opponent, Jacksonville, off that Monday night win against the Chiefs, home against Seattle.
Very active as Darnold sets to throw, and floating one down the middle. And Smith-Njigba has it. Touchdown, Seahawks.
I don't know what to make of these two teams. I think they're both good teams. Seattle's defense is legit. They got after Trevor Lawrence. They sacked him 7 times in this game. Led by in the game DeMarcus Lawrence, who they signed from Dallas in the offseason. He had 2 sacks. This defense for Seattle, and I know they gave up 38 with a turnover in there, to the Bucs last week. Big play potential with Darnold going deep to Smith-Njigba, 61 yards. He had 2 61-yard completions in the game, including one to A.J. Barner. I don't know what to make of Seattle at this point. They lost to the Niners in the opener in a game they could have won. They lost to the Bucs in a game they could have won. They barely beat the Cardinals on Thursday Night Football. They're a 4-2 football team that could be 6-0. At this point. They come to Washington, this year. One of those games you weren't really sure, kind of looked on paper at the beginning of the season like a game you could get. Seattle knocks off Jacksonville 20-12. Plenty of opportunities for Jacksonville, down 20-12. After they made it to 20-12, they had 3 more offensive possessions, went 3 and out, and 6 and out. The pressure on Trevor Lawrence by Seattle's pass rush was nonstop all day long. All right, we'll finish up. We've got still Drake May's incredible day in New Orleans. The really incredible effort by Jacoby Brissett in Indianapolis yesterday, and a Chargers-Dolphins finish that was great. Also included truly the worst quarterback performance I've seen in many, many years. And yet, the team that had it covered and nearly won. All of that coming up next. Ben Standig at 12.
All right. Happy Monday, everybody. We got to take a look around the NFC East following yesterday's games. As we all know, the Giants defeated the Eagles on Thursday Night Football 34-17, and yesterday The Dallas Cowboys, they fall to the Carolina Panthers on a walk-off field goal after Dallas's defense gets walked down by Bryce Young on a 5-minute drive that put them in field goal range. Again, Dallas falls 30-27. To baseball, the Mariners, they beat the Blue Jays in game 1 of the ALCS by a score of 3-1. Cal Raleigh hits his 62nd home run of the season to kickstart Seattle in the 6th inning. Plus, tonight, we got 2 Monday Night Football games on tap, starting with the Buffalo Bills taking on the Atlanta Falcons. That will kick at 7:15. And tonight, your Washington Commanders, they take on the Chicago Bears on Monday Night Football. The injury report for Washington, Terry McLaurin is out. Dino Brown out as well. Sam Cosmi listed as doubtful. And Deebo Samuel sounds like he should be good to go, according to Tom Pelissero. He was dealing with a bruised heel injury throughout this week. That should be kicking off tonight at 8:15. Troy Aikman and Joe Buck on the call on ESPN. This update is sponsored by the Team 980 YouTube page. Just open the app, type in the Team 980, hit subscribe. Kevin Sheehan is live every day from 10 to 1. You can catch Denton's office throughout all of football season. Don't forget to hit the like button whenever you do decide to join us and turn on notifications to stay up to date on all things DC sports. And that is what's trending.
Enough time for the Saints to get it back, but now the Patriots threatening. May takes a shot down the field. It's Booty. Touchdown.
Drake May, big day yesterday for the Patriots. They beat the Saints 25-19, 18 of 26, 261 yards, 3 touchdowns. That one, a 29-yarder. So, look, the Patriots have really done an excellent job. Josh McDaniels is, Courtney made a really good point, just how Caleb last year was the only one without a true quarterback whisperer. I guess, Drake May didn't have it either necessarily. And this year now everything's come together. All of the 6 quarterbacks, you got Bo Nix, obviously, with Sean Payton, J.J. McCarthy with Kevin O'Connell. Penix Jr. has the OC who was with Sean McVay. He's a good OC, Zach Robinson. I wouldn't call him a quarterback whisperer necessarily. Jaden with Kingsbury, Caleb now with Ben Johnson, and Drake May with Josh McDaniel. And he looks the part every which way. His arm strength, his decision-making, his ability to create off schedule, his ability with his legs to make plays. He was huge on third down yesterday in a game that was right there for New Orleans to get. They had a crucial turnover on a drive down 25-19, had crossed into New England territory. Juwan Johnson, the tight end, fumbled. I want to see the Patriots do it against teams consistently where it's not coming down to the final possession before I anoint them as like a threat in the AFC. I said that they weren't going to make the playoffs last week. I think that was the week I said it. No, I said it before the loss to Buffalo. They're much better than I thought, and they're much better coached. And Drake May's the real deal right now. He is really, really solid first half, unbelievable first half. I think he threw all 3 of his touchdowns in the first half in this game. Let me just mention one thing real quickly about this game, because it's the second straight week I've paid attention to the Saints, because I had them against the Giants and I had them against the Pats yesterday. That was one of my few losers this weekend. Spencer Rattler can play, man. He can play. You can see he processes quickly. Kellen Moore, the head coach and the offensive play caller, he processes quickly. He can really make plays with his legs. He's terrific off schedule. He's got the arm strength. He played a really good football game yesterday, a very good football game. He can make tight window throws. Spencer Rattler, out of last year's draft, is going to end up being, I think, a starting quarterback in this league. I mean, New Orleans is going to have an opportunity, I guess, in the draft, but I would not put it past them to stick with Rattler. I think he looks impressive. You can tell with the young guys who don't need the processing experience, it's already there. He throws with anticipation. He throws on time. There's something about him that I like. The big issue with Spencer Rattler was apparently not the easiest dude to get along with when he was in college. Big win for the Patriots, who are now 4-2, and they'll sit back and watch Buffalo in a tough one tonight against Atlanta. Let's go to Pittsburgh for the Browns and the Steelers.
10th play of the drive. Rodgers, sprint out, on the move, directing traffic, throws! Touchdown!
Yeah, look, the Browns defense has been outstanding, as most of you know. Number 1 defense in the NFL. And the Pittsburgh moved the football against Cleveland. They put up 335 yards of offense. They were 6 for 13 on third downs. They did it in few plays because, the Browns ended up having a ton of plays in a game that was weirdly lopsided for most of it. Said this going back to preseason. Aaron Rodgers was not the problem last year with the Jets, and he is far from the problem this year in Pittsburgh. They are a 4-1 football team. He's thrown efficiently. He is 10 touchdowns, 3 picks on the season, a solid 21 out of 30 yesterday. He's completing 68.8% of his passes. They are very good at running the football right now, with whether it's Warren or Gainwell last week in their win against the Vikings, or 2 weeks ago before they took the bye week. I like the Steelers, although I don't like them this coming week against Cincinnati at home in Cincinnati. But the Steelers are just piling up some wins, harvesting their nuts, their Eddie Jordan nuts right now. Aaron Rodgers playing at a high level, and that connection with DK Metcalf is working. 4 catches, 95 yards, and a touchdown yesterday in the Steelers' 23-9 win over the Browns. Let's go to Indy for one of the games of the day.
Toss play, Taylor to the edge, to the end zone. The Colts take the lead in the fourth.
I mean, the story of a game like this is that Kyler Murray's out. I pulled the Cardinals, by the way, on social media on X from the smell test yesterday. The only reason I did it is the line shot up, so clearly the odds makers did not, lean in Arizona anymore with the 7.5 line with Kyler Murray. Old Jacoby Brissett, when he just comes in for a game or two, man, does he ball out. 320 yards passing in the game. They had a lead on Indy. They had an opportunity late driving against Indy, but Indy prevails 31-27. They get the win. Jonathan Taylor, another big day, 123 yards rushing. He's got 603 now on the season through 6 games. It's been a long time, I think, for a running back. Maybe Adrian Peterson was the last one to win MVP. Daniel Jones, another very effective day, 22 of 30. He did have a pick in this one, but I think it was off no, it was in a flat, just totally misread on a bootleg. Colts get to 5-1. How for real are they? Their wins over the Dolphins, Titans, Raiders, and Cardinals, and then they do have the win in week 2 over the Broncos, where they got a little bit lucky with a missed game-winning field goal, but a penalty on the play. Interesting team in Indianapolis in that AFC South and in the AFC overall. Speaking of the AFC, let's go to Miami for the Chargers and the Dolphins.
Pressure coming again. Herbert in trouble. Herbert keeps it alive. Completes it to McConkey, who stops on a dime. There he goes. McConkey inside the 20. How did Herbert do it?
Yeah, that was the big play. 2nd and 10, 30 seconds to go. They're trailing 27-26, and Herbert escapes a sack and gets out of it, throws to McConkey, and there he was running down the sideline for what would have been a bad beat. But fortunately, he went out of bounds. They kicked the field goal, and the Chargers held on. They gave up a lot, man. We saw last week defensively they were in trouble. Offensively, they had some issues for sure. But that third-string running back who came in against Washington, Vidal, 124 yards rushing. After the game, Tua blamed people not showing up for players-only meetings. That thing is falling apart, even though they were right there on the precipice of getting a win over the Chargers. The Chargers avoid what would have been a 3rd straight loss, and a bad one. They get the Colts this coming Sunday out in L.A. Let's go to Green Bay, Lambeau for Cincinnati, and Joe Flacco's debut against the Packers.
Rushing 1st and 10. Fake to Jacobs. It's out to the tight end. Kraft galloping inside. Touchdown.
Boy, that Matthew Kraft is pretty damn good. Tucker Kraft, excuse me. I was also going to say Matthew Golden, the rookie receiver from Texas, is getting more and more. That's a good football team, Green Bay. And yet Cincinnati had them, one stop away from getting the ball back down 1 score, because old Joe Flacco in the second half lit it up, threw for over 200 yards in the second half, 2 touchdowns. Jamar Chase, do you think he's glad that there's no more Jake Browning? 10 catches, 94 yards. T. Higgins had his biggest day of the year. Cincinnati much more competitive offensively in the loss to Green Bay. If they're going to stay in the hunt, the next 3 games for the Bengals, all at home against Pittsburgh Thursday night, the Jets, and the Bears. If they're going to stay alive for Joe Burrow's return, they'll have to do it the next 3 home games. Let's finish with what was, I think, the worst quarterback performance in decades.
Fields avoids the sack until he can't.
Negative 10 yards passing for the Jets yesterday. Negative 10 yards. Worst passing performance by a team in 27 years. He was 9 of 17 for 45 yards, got sacked 9 times for 55 yards. It's reminiscent of that game Sam Howell played against Buffalo, except he threw for more yards in the game, but he just couldn't see it, just couldn't see anything, kept getting sacked over and over again, threw a bunch of picks. Justin Fields wouldn't even throw the football. He's overwhelmed right now. I don't know. Justin Fields looks like one of those guys now where even if he did get with a quarterback whisperer, you know, a Kevin O'Connell or a Sean McVay or a Kyle Shanahan, I don't know, man. That was the worst I've ever seen a quarterback play in recent memory. It was so god-awful. And it was so bad that people are killing Aaron Glenn. By the way, Aaron Glenn's off to a disastrous start. There is no doubt about that. But at the end of the half, with the ball basically at midfield almost, they decided to let the clock run out rather than drop Justin Fields back and hoping for some sort of play that might lead to a field goal attempt. They were up 11-10. Denver, man, defensively, once again, you know, you got this absolute freak, Nick Bonito, and some of their other guys. Denver, you know, ekes out a win. Wasn't pretty. I can't tell you. I cannot name a quarterback performance that was worse. And yet I had the Jets +7, and they covered miraculously. Justin Fields has to be done there for the time being. He just looks completely shell-shocked and almost to the point of disinterested, like I don't want to get hit again. I don't want to, you know, throw a bad ball. He's lost all confidence. Not that confidence is the only issue with him. Let's get to Ben Standing next. Ben Standing with us every Monday and Friday. Today is a game day kickoff tonight, 8:15 in Landover. I was just looking at the updated weather for tonight. Could be some rain, could be some wind, but it's not the true nor'easter for us that they ended up having down in the beach areas. You know, it was pretty windy and pretty rainy in some of those spots. We got away with one, although that would have been fun. Gives you a reason to just stay in and watch football all weekend. Not that I needed a reason at all. Ben's with us right now on game day. So can we just start real quickly with, you know, updated injuries, which came over the weekend, and a lot of people miss it when it comes over the weekend. But who's in and who's out tonight?
Yeah, well, first off, the option of staying on my couch while it's raining tonight would not be an option. So, boo rain.
Right.
Yeah, so Terry McLaurin, Noah Brown are out. That much we know. So that's the fourth game for Noah Brown, the third game for Terry. Obviously, we've talked a lot about the depth at receiver, and hopefully for their sake, it doesn't get worse if Deebo Samuel is also out. Now, he's listed as questionable, which is kind of where he was last week, except by the Friday of last week, the equivalent of, Saturday this week, he was telling us he was playing, whereas this week, Dan Quinn wouldn't go that far to make that claim. Now, the fact that Deebo Samuel did talk with the media this week, to me, suggests he's like, it's likely or more likely that he plays. And so that's my guess. But, the fact that they are slow playing it to some degree, you have to at least wonder. So that's the thing there. Chris Rodriguez was listed as questionable, didn't practice all week, however. If he were to miss the game, then presumably they would call or activate somebody from the practice squad, or elevate. I don't know if that would be Chase Edmonds or Donovan Edwards, the rookie out of Michigan. But that's the other thing to consider right now.
Is it crazy that I think the only God, man, I got to be careful with this because people actually think I don't think Terry McLaurin's good. I do think he's good. I think he's really good. But not having Deebo Samuel, and I'm expecting him to play tonight, no matter what you said. You believe he'll play tonight, right?
I mean, I would certainly lean that way, yeah.
Yeah. I just think that's, other than the quarterback, that would be the injury that would be the most devastating to this team right now, is to not have number one on the field.
Well, you're saying independent of Terry, like if Terry were to be playing, you would still say the same, or today, because we know that McLaurin's out?
I'm just saying that right now, other than Jaden Daniels, of all of the players, let's just start with offense, the player that they would miss most would be Deebo Samuel.
Well, again, I mean, certainly without McLaurin, that would be 100%. Like, I mean, I really, I remember that game years ago when the Jay Gruden, Kirk Cousins era, and the offensive line was missing 4 starters. They went to Seattle and were like,
Seattle won, yeah.
Yeah, and then they won. So, like, these things always get overly dramatic. These guys can play. But based on what we have seen, the receiving game would be massively hindered to not have all those guys. But, yeah, I mean, the Deebo has been their best player, offensively. Like, if you look at their numbers the last 3 games, of which Jaden Daniels only played 1, they're number 1 in rushing. I think they're 4th in scoring. I think they're like 5th in points per drive, EPA per drive. Like, and again, that's without Jaden playing 2 of those games. So Deebo has been a huge factor in that. So yeah, I think that would be a critical loss for sure. I mean, what Bobby Wagner does for the defense maybe would be hard. Would be hard. It's not impossible to replace. But yes, Deebo would be a big loss if he could go, especially without Terry in the lineup.
All right. There were a couple of things that you wanted to talk about, and we'll do that right now, and then we'll get to the game and get your preview and pick, et cetera. But I actually think I asked you this on Friday, and that is, we're not that far off. We're 3 weeks away, 2.5 weeks away from the trade deadline. There was a big move last year at the trade deadline for this team, trading for Marshawn Lattimore. I asked you last week, and you actually threw out Brandon Coleman's name. So do you think Washington could be busy prior to the trade deadline?
Yeah, so I wrote about this today on my Substack. And to be clear, because I already had a couple of people say, oh, wow, you already, knowing the Brian Robinson thing from a few weeks back. And this isn't that in terms of how I'm looking at it, meaning that when I more or less called my shot and said I think it's unlikely he'd be there. This I'm just sort of looking at okay, let's look at the landscape here. Brandon Coleman, who obviously, was a 3rd-round pick last year, started a bunch of games, started the first 2 of this year. I do think there's still a lot of hope there, and I do think they think there's still a lot of hope and potential. But they did make the move. It's fair to say the line has improved over the last 3 games since they switched both guard spots out, and now Sam Cosmi is going to come back. I think probably by next week will be my guess. So that's only going to logically further push Coleman down the list. Whether it's Paul or Wiley at guard, at the left guard spot, the other one is there. It should you want to make a switch as well. So I kind of, barring injury, which of course happens, or barring Coleman, revitalizing himself in practices enough to have Dan Quinn and others think he should be playing. I don't know what it would take for him to get back and play. Now, he still has 2 years out on his contract after this, a rookie deal, so that's all good and a promise. But, if I'm them, a team that only has, 2 picks in the first 4 rounds next year, always is looking for more draft capital. And if Chris Paul is playing well enough that, they think, hey, we can bring him back, he's a free agent at the end of the year, does it make sense to take an asset in Coleman who, similar to how they, Jahan Dodson, similar to a degree to Brian Robinson, but probably more akin to Dodson because he had multiple years left on his deal, to say, hey, can we get other assets back for somebody who may just not be in our plans right now? Now, I think that Coleman is more in their plans than Dodson was, but, again, we just look at it more and more. I just think there's something to this. And then here's the thing, the trade deadline is November 4th. There's still 4 games to go, including tonight. But with Cosme back next week, that would leave 10 offensive linemen. Typically, teams don't carry 10 offensive linemen on the active roster. Now, you could just say, hey, George Fant, we're going to have to let you go, and we're going to put you back on the practice squad if we're fortunate or whatever. But something probably has to give. So, again, they don't have to do anything. They could just keep all 10 or, laugh at any suggestion that they would even consider moving off of Coleman. I get that. But I just think if you're just looking at it practically, understanding their bigger picture aspect and where things are going this year, I think it's at least something that they should logically consider, because other than him, they don't really have anything to trade that, to get back something significant. By significant, I just mean I think you would get more than the, swap a 6th for a 7th and then trade that player. I think you get something. I'm not saying a 3rd or a 4th, but I don't know, something, because other teams would value him, I would imagine. Everybody needs offensive line help. So to me, I just think it's something that it is top of mind for me. I don't know if it's top of mind for them, but based on how they've done other deals the last year plus, seems like it could be.
You also wrote just about the idea that Noah Brown's been out now for a while. Terry going on, coming up on sort of injured reserve territory as well. Why didn't they consider putting either one of those 2 players on IR?
Well, because obviously the medical report suggested that they weren't necessarily out beyond 4 weeks. Jonathan Jones was put on IR. He's eligible to come off after this game, so we'll see if that happens. But the initial report there was 4 to 6 weeks. Will Harris kind of in the same range, et cetera. And here, obviously Terry in particular, but Noah Brown as well, if there's any chance that they could play within this 4-week stretch, it's absolutely worth holding them on the roster versus IR, because, as we have seen, there's just not that much going on behind them at receiver to say, hey, we can kind of get by with what we have. No, this would be a big boost. But what infuriates me in terms of just how my brain works is the people who are saying that the team botched this by the fact that now Noah Brown has missed 4 games and didn't put him on IR. Okay, I'll ask your audience this. If I say to you right now, can a ground cause a fumble? I guarantee a lot of people instinctively say what, Kevin? They would say that the ground can't cause a fumble because we think of it in terms of being tackled. The reality is it absolutely can, but it's never said that way. People just, because of the fact that it's 4 weeks, just are sort of blindly go with, oh, they should have put him on IR, when that's just completely false. And again, what would they have done with that spot anyway? Teams put 5 to 7 guys on inactive every week, regardless. And it's not like they've had a situation where they went into a game without the maximum number of players to use. If the injuries were even more than what they were.
I love the way you obsess over these things. I shouldn't even. I almost texted you back last night to say, honestly, this isn't a big thing for the masses here. Now we're going to list the players that could have or couldn't have. The fact that they did have all 53. You answered it from the beginning. They weren't sure. There was a possibility these guys could have been back for the last couple of weeks. That's the answer.
Yeah. No, I mean, of course, especially McLaurin. I mean, I've seen people say why that they made this mistake. But you got to be kidding me. That he could stay on the active roster for the rest of the year and never play again, and it would still be the right call. There, my larger point is there are times to ding the team, but don't be silly.
Who's
about when
dinging
you
the
do
team over this? Is it in our little bubble of media people and a few of the fans that have blogs?
Well, I mean, I mean, isn't that the entire ecosystem we have here? Yes. I mean, obviously, I didn't do a poll. I don't know how many people, but I'm just saying, it's enough out there for me to tell you that this is the thing that I ended up writing about because it is out there and I've heard about it and et cetera. So anyway, I'm just saying that
it wasn't out there for me until you made me aware of it. But it is something to chew on for as long as we've chewed on it. So let's move on.
Sounds good.
You wrote something that was really interesting about Jordan McGee because last week when I saw Jordan McGee on the field, I figured it at the first noticing of him. Well, he's in for Bobby Wagner, and then I'm like, wait a minute, 54's on the field too, and Luvu barely came off the field. So they went with 3 linebackers in the game with McGee in a traditional 4-3 alignment defensively. For those that haven't paid a lot of attention to that kind of stuff in football, the nickel, 5 defensive backs has really become a base defense, especially against 11 personnel, meaning 1 back, 1 tight end, 3 receivers. And because so many teams run so much 1 back, 1 tight end, 3 receivers, most defenses aren't in the, old school 4 down linemen, 3 linebackers. It's 4 down linemen, 2 backers, and 5 DBs typically. But they had 3 linebackers on the field for at least 12 snaps with Jordan McGee on there. Is it possible they'll have all 3 on the field a bunch tonight?
Well, I don't think it's just possible. I think it's definitely happening because Joe Witt Jr., when asked about it this week, even though the coaches tend to not like to give away anything about the plan, he said, the Chargers ran a lot of 12 and 13 personnel. They also use a fullback, and the Bears also run a lot of 12 personnel. So you can probably expect Jordan to be out there. The Bears, according to Next Gen Stats, run the 5th most 12 personnel in the league, and I think that's something that they will do. And this also it brings up a sort of tangential point is, well, if you're putting the 3rd linebacker on the field, who comes off? And like you said, the nickel is kind of a base, but Mikey Sanderson was the one who came off more this game than he typically does. And I would imagine that's probably the same because Trey Amos has played very well on the outside, and Marshawn Lattimore's coming off.
Well, it's because Mikey's a nickel. He's in the nickel corner.
Yeah, well, but at least hypothetically, until we saw what Trey Amos did, it was like, okay, well, could Sanders still move outside?
Right. True.
And, so there's been no, and also he's like, if you just look at production, he's given up a pretty decent amount of production to slot receivers compared to his peers.
Right.
So he's not been crushing it anyway. But yeah, it changes the look. And we go back to last year when they were obviously horrendous against the run. Part of it is you're constantly having a smaller player on the field in a 5th defensive back when the other team has 2 tight ends or 3 tight ends. And, I think that they identified that as an issue. So, Jordan McGee was on the field, as we recall, in week 2 against the Packers. And it appears that he was the one that probably made the mistake on that Tucker Kraft long touchdown. Oh, sorry, not touchdown, but the long 60-something yard gain up the field because he didn't run with him. And I think his snaps probably were, limited a bit over the next couple of weeks, but they think he did a better job this past week, which gives them encouragement to say, okay, we can run this back again. And again, the Bears have, 2 tight ends and Cole Kmet with looks like Colson Loveland, who's their 1st round pick, looks like he'll probably play. And Caleb Williams has done Caleb Williams has done pretty well against 12 personnel. in 12 personnel this year. So, it's a key look for the Bears and one Washington will have to match up against. And, based on what happened last week, I think they feel better about McGee. So, yeah, you can expect him. I mean, again, it was 12 snaps last week, but that matched his season total.
His 12 snaps, though, were noticeable, didn't you think? And I did not listen to the Witt Jr. presser. I think we had a couple of quotes when we were on the air here on Friday, because it was Friday instead of Thursday, I think, this week. But anyway, what did he say about Jordan McGee? Was he asked about his performance?
Yeah, he was, and I asked Bobby Wagner about it as well. If you go on my Twitter feed right now, I put the Wagner video up just a few minutes ago. But yeah, basically just, look, this is a guy, like, he's very athletic and, even among football players. And that's something where, again, so we talk more about this on the offensive side, that they're looking to add those playmakers, i.e. a Deebo Samuel or what they've gotten out of Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. Well, what about on defense? McGee is somebody who can give you that. Again, because of Wagner and Luvu, there's just not simply enough opportunity to play much, but he can play some. And, yeah, they like what they see. Wagner said, we see it in practice, him making plays all the time. You guys obviously don't get to see it. So
right.
It's cool that you did. But, yeah, I mean, when you say you saw him, yeah, his athleticism stands out, even among a group of NFL players who are all, in varying degrees, highly athletic. So that's where it gets interesting. It just gives them more options down the line in terms of, how they can match up with certain teams. And if they want to go, with bigger, they at least have that option, whereas last year they just didn't feel they did.
Talking to Ben Standing at Ben Standing, of course, on X on Twitter, where you can link to his Substack stuff, which is great. He writes pretty much every day about your favorite team, and always has, I think a lot of nuggets in there that, you know what a fan I am of Ben. He's got a podcast as well, Last Man Standing, it's called. All right, so this is one of those, like, going into the game, there's so many stark, differences between certain matchups. Their terrible run defense against the number one rush offense, their terrible rush offense against a vastly improving run defense. Beyond the obvious that everybody can kind of see looking at this game, what do you consider to be the keys to a win?
Well, this may be obvious, so apologies if so, but I feel like every week, at least for the last few weeks, to me, the key has been, can Washington's defensive front take control of the game? They did against the Raiders and the Giants. They did as the game went along against the Chargers, and obviously they didn't against the Packers and the Falcons. And, I think, look, the offense has been remarkably good considering the absences. I mean, could you imagine if we, before the season, said, hey, Eckler's hurt, McLaurin's out, Noah Brown's out, Jade misses 2 games, etc., John Bates, and they're going to still have, like you said, the number one rush attack. They're still scoring at a very good clip. The defense is where the variable is. And so if that group can stand up and be, more like they were against the Giants and the Raiders, that, more imposing.
The program.
If that can happen, then, then we can really get back to talking about this team as a contender. But if they're that team that's just going to get mashed by, when they have matchup problems like they did against Green Bay and Atlanta, then obviously the ceiling drops. So, the Bears, their offensive line is interesting. Like, they've only given up 7 sacks. They've played one less game than everybody else, so keep that in mind. But they've only given up 7 sacks. But they still are giving up a decent amount of pressures. It's just that Caleb Williams is so good, at extending plays and avoiding getting hit to a degree that, he helps keep those numbers down. They invested a lot of money in their offensive line and on the interior. They're getting back Darnell Wright, who was their first-round pick a couple of years ago at right tackle. So they have a good offensive line in terms of talent. The execution, it's been up and down for them too. But if Washington is the better end of this, I think they're going to win this game. If the Bears keep them off, away from Caleb Williams, then they're going to have to outscore them, which they can do. But that's just, all of a sudden that's a different game. So to me, that's Washington's defensive line against an offensive line that's good, but maybe not good enough, can they, impose, what they want to do on them?
All right. What's your prediction?
I'm gonna, we have not seen this team win 2 games in a row this year. We haven't even really seen them have 2 consistently good performances in a row this year. So it's a little jarring or daunting to say, hey, they're gonna win. Again, I'll assume Debo plays, but we'll have to see for sure. All that said, and I'm sure the Bears, you don't really have to really talk about motivation, but between having to talk about the Hail Mary loss for them over and over again, and then with the Ben Johnson factor, his season ended last year to Washington despite having 500 yards of offense. Maybe because he didn't give Jahmyr Gibbs the ball enough, but that's a whole other story. They've got a lot of motivation, but I think this is the week Washington finds some of that consistency. Jaden played better as the last week went along, and despite whatever he wants to say about not caring about the matchup with Caleb Williams, I just find that hard to believe completely as a competitor. So give me Washington 27-20 in this one.
27-20 Washington. Ben's got. I'll have my prediction. Max will have his in about 20 minutes or so. Thank you. Appreciate it. Enjoy it.
Of course, man. See you.
Ben Standig, everybody. When we come back, a few other things that happened over the weekend we got to get to, including the Penn State firing of James Franklin, Maryland's loss again in heartbreaking fashion, and more. We'll do that. We'll finish up with predictions. If you guys want to start jumping on the phone lines, 301-230-0980. Prediction for tonight, along with a footnote that you think has a legitimate chance of happening. Billy and Chantilly, that's for you. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980, the team980.com. I do want to tell you about Foley Mechanical. So we recently had an HVAC system issue. It was giving us problems. We called Foley Mechanical, and Dan Foley, who is the founder and president of Foley Mechanical, came out himself, dealt with the problem directly. He's an impressive guy. He owns 100% of the company. This is not a franchise. It's not a big, private equity firm company. He controls the quality from the equipment to the people he hires. His team, they were professional, skilled, sharp, took care of the problem. Foley Mechanical is full service, heating, air conditioning, hot water, and boilers. And they're the go-to for older homes with radiator heat, a real specialty. They work across D.C., Maryland, and Virginia, and they proudly install Amana HVAC equipment. If your system needs help, my recommendation is to call Foley Mechanical or go to FoleyMechanical.com and tell Dan himself that I sent you.
Put the ball in the hands of your best playmaker.
Raiola throws into the flat. Caught! Nebraska takes the lead. Dane Key.
Crazy Saturday. Maryland lost another heartbreaker at home. Last week, they gave up 24 unanswered and lost to Washington 24-20. On Saturday, they took a 7-point lead to the fourth quarter. Actually, were driving early in the fourth quarter to make it a 10-point lead or more. And they ended up losing 34-31 to Nebraska. We will get to Washington predictions if you want to start lining it up on the phones. Skins Bears tonight, your final score prediction with a footnote if you want to weigh in starting in about 10 to 12 minutes. So crazy weekend in sports. It started, by the way, with Friday night's 15-inning absolute classic between the Tigers and the Mariners. What a dramatic pitch-by-pitch. Didn't end until 1:18 a.m., and your boy was up watching all of it. It's so good. The pitching, the defense. Mariners won that game 3-2. That was incredible. We had another fifth and deciding game Saturday night, which was exciting. The Brewers advanced. And then last night, game one of Mariners Blue Jays, Cal Raleigh hit a home run. He also was called out in the first inning on a play where it looked like he was safe. I don't know why Seattle didn't challenge it. It doesn't matter. They won the game anyway to take a 1-0 lead in the ALCS. They play Toronto this afternoon in game 2, and the Dodgers and Brewers get started tonight in Milwaukee in the NLCS. Saturday, we had a hell of a day of college football. It started kind of with the 3:30 matchup between Indiana and Oregon. And wow, is Kurt Cignetti a good coach? He's not, the easiest guy to digest. There's no doubt about that. But what he does is he wins, and he wins big games, unlike James Franklin has. But Indiana going to Oregon and winning. Fernando Mendoza now, along with Carson Beck, are the two Heisman Trophy front runners, along with Ty Simpson, too. That was a hell of a game, the Alabama-Missouri game early on in the day. Just incredible football, close games, a near shocking upset. Washington State going to Oxford, nearly knocking off Ole Miss. Texas getting some real help from special teams and a couple of decent plays. I mean, Arch Manning made some plays late, but I got to tell you, man, he doesn't see it quickly enough for me, not right now. Texas Tech may be the most underrated, undefeated team in the country. They could be legit scary the rest of the year. Auburn, I gave out Auburn plus the points. Never was a right side more obvious than Auburn until a 4th down and goal at the goal line should have been a touchdown upon replay, and somehow, inexplicably, they didn't see the ball break the plane before the quarterback fumbled it. Football, great football all day long. BYU, Arizona, what a football game that was. And then we come to my team, the local team, Maryland, losing, another very difficult, close game. Terp fans are tough, really tough when it comes to basketball. Not as many care about football, clearly. You can see that in the crowds that show up to the games. But Mike Locksley said something, and I'm going to start with something that I know will anger a lot of Maryland fans. He said, it's not the same old Maryland. You can watch us with your own eyes and determine this is a decent football team. He's right. It is. It is a decent football team, but some things haven't changed. And those some things are that Maryland typically loses these kinds of games with self-infliction. 8 penalties, 100 yards, 4 of them in the first half, 15 yards, silly, controllable penalties. I don't want to hear about how referees have it out for Maryland. Yeah, there were a couple of bad calls, horrendous calls in the game last week that they lost to Washington. But Maryland's been the most penalized team over Locksley's tenure at Maryland. They've lost a lot of games because of penalties, many of which aren't even really forced. They're pre-snap, they're special teams penalties pre-snap that cost them last year in a game against Michigan State. They're, 15-yarders here and there, silly, taunting, unnecessary roughness, late hit penalties. There's a lack of discipline, and there has been since he arrived. And there was a delay of game penalty that was just egregious on Saturday. Maryland, on the first play of the fourth quarter, Nolan Ray got dumped for a loss. They were already in field goal range to start the fourth quarter, up 31-24, going for not what it wouldn't have been a knockout blow necessarily, but a way to increase the score in the fourth quarter to 2 scores, 34-24 or maybe 38-24. He gets dumped for a 4-yard loss, and they decided to go for it, 4th and 6 at the Nebraska 35-yard line. Could have kicked a field goal. Their kicker's got that leg, but they decided to go for it, and they had a delay of game penalty. It's egregious. You cannot allow, as the whomever is the guy responsible for telling the coach, or if it's the coach himself, to call timeout to avoid a delay of game penalty on a play that's crucial in the game. Can't take a delay of game penalty. Just can't. Got to you got to be decisive. We're going for it. Play's got to get in there. And if that play clock gets down and you really do want to go for it rather than punt, and I'm assuming that they did, or kick a field goal, you've got to get a timeout before the delay of game hits. And they didn't. Self-inflicted. They ended up punting on that drive. Nebraska went down, got a field goal, and then stopped Maryland and got the ball back and went down the field with a couple of amazing Dylan Riola plays, the quarterback for Nebraska. And Maryland had the ball down 34-31, down 3, needing just a field goal. And there was an intentional grounding, a devastating penalty on a 1st and 10 with 37 seconds to go, and the ball at midfield. He's a freshman quarterback. He's got a lot going for him. Malik Washington, size-wise, arm strength-wise, I think, the processing is there. And I talked about this last week on the show with Jake Butt, who joined us from the Big Ten Network. He is inaccurate. Like, there's some accuracy issues. He tries to throw the ball through a brick wall when the receiver's 3 yards in front of him. He's got some touch issues, but I really like Malik Washington. I like the opportunity for him to develop. I actually haven't been as much against the play calling as some of you have been. I think Pep Hamilton's done a nice job with him. And by the way, on Saturday, they were able to run the football better than they've run it in a while. I thought Nolan Ray looked really good. DeJuan Williams, the same thing. But it's these penalties. It's self-inflicted, a lot of them. They did not tackle well on Saturday. That was another big issue. They had opportunities to get guys to the ground that would have been impactful, and they didn't. But, yeah, Maryland's now 4-2, and now you start wondering whether or not they can find 2 more wins for bowl eligibility after being 4-0 with a 20-0 lead and being on the verge of being ranked. They go to UCLA this week. They're a 3-point dog against a team that has miraculously turned what appeared to be the worst team in Power 4 into a team that's now won 2 straight games. UCLA beat Penn State, part of what led to Franklin's demise. And then they routed Michigan State in East Lansing. Maryland playing in the Rose Bowl for the first time ever against UCLA on Saturday as a dog. Then they get number 3 Indiana at home. Then they have, at Rutgers, then at Illinois. They got Michigan. They still have Michigan State. You look at it and you say Rutgers, Michigan State, and UCLA are the opportunities to get 2 more. But then I know a lot of you are like, well, who cares? What's the point? Well, I'll just stick with the first thing I said. This is a decent Maryland football team. This is, I think, on defense and on offense, in terms of their scheme and the way they play, better than they've been in a long time, including with Leah Tungavailoa. And I think their potential is greater. I think they're going to be a tough out for the teams they face. It's just 2 devastating losses on what could be a 6-0 football team going to UCLA as, say, the 18th or 19th ranked team in the country. But they're not, and they seem to never get to that point. And I would chalk it up to they got a lot of talent, and he is recruited with the best of them, considering their situation. Every Sunday you turn on the games and it's like, there's another Maryland player. You'll see 1 or 2 tonight. Ruben Hippolyte on defense, DJ Moore on offense. I know DJ wasn't necessarily his, I don't think. But too many penalties, too many missed tackles, too many just mistakes that are the difference, the fine line between two even teams, between winning and losing. You can't have a delay a game on a big fourth down when you got a field goal as an option, you've chosen to go for it, and you take a delay a game and you got to punt the football. Just can't do that and expect to win these fine line games, more often than not. And they haven't won these games more often than not. And usually it comes down to those things. You can't have 4 15-yard penalties in a half. They have been consistently the most penalized team over his tenure. And it's the self-inflicted damage that overshadows the talent they have. And he has put together some talent. If you want to end up in the NFL, going to Maryland and playing for Mike Locksley in this group seems to be a gateway to that. With that said, you're going to struggle to win 6, 7, 8 in your best year because there's too much self-inflicted damage consistently. But he was right after the game. If you're watching this team like I do every play of every game, they are better than their record says they are. It's a good team defensively. They didn't tackle well Saturday. Did not tackle well. Offensively, I think Pep Hamilton's doing an excellent job. Special teams-wise, they've had big moments at times. Now, they gave up, some yards the other day. And by the way, their running back, Nebraska's running back, Emmett Johnson, wow, is he an NFL back, obviously. Had a $176 against a defense that I do think is a good defense. I do. I'm not giving up on the season, but man, you can't consistently bash your head in the face with a 2x4. You can't do it and expect to win these fine line games. All right, we'll come back. We'll give you Franklin. Just amazing, right? 2 weeks ago Saturday, they got a 7-point lead in overtime against Oregon, and he is staring in the face one of the big wins because he can't beat top 10 teams, one of the big wins in his era at Penn State. And they're about to go to undefeated, ranked maybe 2 in the country still behind Ohio State. And 15 days later, after 3 straight losses, he's gone. Man, there have been a lot of coaches fired here. Virginia Tech, right? Oak State, Arkansas, Petrino took over. Probably more to come. College football, really fascinating season so far. There seem to be a lot of teams that could win this whole thing, and Indiana might be one of them. And Cignetti, will he go from Indiana to Penn State? That's the cooker, man. Indiana is a basketball-first school. That's what they care about more than anything. But look, they're having now number 3 team in the country. And guess who they get to play in a few weeks? Yeah, they get to play Penn State in Happy Valley, where he could be coaching at a place where he will get the gig. Matt Rule's another guy that's been talked about as well. Window Nation is offering a phenomenal deal right now. October's here. The return of chilly air felt like fall all weekend long. If you've got older, stuck, cracked windows, I recommend Window Nation. They'll eliminate those annoying drafts with brand new, efficient, top-quality replacement windows. They've got the best out there, and they'll get it done in a day or less. They'll give you, your estimate in an hour or less. They'll give you your windows, install them in a day or less. It's minimal interruption to your life if you've been thinking about new windows. Call them at 866-90-NATION or go to windownation.com and get access to their deal right now, which is 2 free windows with every 2 purchased, no down payment, no monthly payments, and no interest charged for 2 years. So you'll get windows essentially at half price because you get 2 free for every 2 you buy, and you don't have to pay anything until the year 2027. Window Nation has installed over 3 million windows across the country. Their windows come with a lifetime warranty, and the price includes 1 day or less installation. Get started now by getting a free, no risk, no pressure, no obligation estimate before October 31st. 866-90-NATION, windownation.com.
All right, happy Monday, everybody. We are coming off a hot NFL Sunday. Yesterday, let's look around the NFC East. As we all know, the New York Giants defeated the Philadelphia Eagles on Thursday Night Football, 34-17. And yesterday, the Dallas Cowboys, they fall to the Carolina Panthers on a walk-off field goal after Dallas defense gets walked down by Bryce Young in a 5.5-minute drive that put them in field goal range. Again, Dallas falls 30-27. To baseball, Mariners, they beat the Blue Jays in game 1 of the ALCS by a score of 3-1. Cal Raleigh hits his 62nd home run of the season to kickstart Seattle in the 6th inning. Tonight, we got 2 Monday Night Football games on tap, starting with the Buffalo Bills taking on the Atlanta Falcons. That kick will be at 7:15. Tonight, the Commanders, they take on the Chicago Bears on Monday Night Football. Commanders have a shot to take the lead in the NFC East arms race following Philly's loss to the New York Giants. Injury report for Washington: Terry McLaurin, Noah Brown already ruled out for the game. Sam Cosmi doubtful as he tries to return from his ACL injury he suffered last year in the playoffs. And Deebo Samuel likely good to go tonight, according to Tom Pelissero. He's been dealing with a bruised heel injury throughout the week of practice. Pre-game coverage underway right here on the Team 980 at 6:30. Simulcast on our sister station 106.7 The Fan. Game gets underway at 8:15. That'll be on ESPN. This update is sponsored by the Team 980 YouTube page. Just open the app, type in the Team 980, hit subscribe. We got pregame coverage underway tonight, and Kevin Sheehan live every day from 10 to 1. You can catch Denton's office throughout all football season. Don't forget to hit the like button whenever you do decide to join us, and turn on notifications to stay up to date on all things DC sports. And that is what's trending.
Line's up to 5.5. Real quickly from Jed. Jed writes, did you see the record-setting field goal at Lambeau yesterday that was waved off by a timeout? I did not, but I read about it. McPherson, the kicker for Cincinnati at the end of the first half, made a 67-yard field goal that hit the crossbar and went over. Would have been a record field goal, indoor or outdoor. That would have been the NFL record. 66 is the NFL record. But Matt LaFleur got a timeout just before the kick, so it was waved off. All right, final score prediction tonight with a footnote. We'll only have time for a call or two here. Washington 29, Chicago 24. That would make it a Chicago cover. The line's up to 5.5 now. I see that everywhere. 5.5. It's going to be one of those where maybe it's 24-17 or 23-17. They score. They go for two, up 29-17 to make it two full touchdowns. Maybe they don't get it. 29-24, late backdoor cover for Chicago. Jaden Daniels, 10 for 85 on the ground with his first rushing TD of the season. If Chicago plays as much man coverage as against Washington as they have in their first four, I'd be surprised. If they do, it's going to be a field day for Jaden as a scrambler. 29-24, Washington. Jaden first rushing TD of the year. Max, go ahead.
It's so funny that you say that, Kevin, with the Jaden Daniels anytime touchdown and rushing stats. I think Chicago defense is posting up one of the worst against the quarterback rush. So, yeah, I'm with you completely on that bold prediction there. But my final score, Washington 31, Chicago 28. Gave it out on Chris Russell's show on Friday. Not wavering. I think this has Washington 3-point win written all over it.
All right. We both have a Chicago cover, though. Quickly, Jason, go ahead.
Yeah, what's up? Thanks for taking my call. I got a big one. I think it's 45-17, all three phases score, and this starts us on a 6-game winning streak.
6-game winning streak. That would be 4 more. That would include one at Arrowhead 2 weeks from tonight. All right, we're done. Yeah, sorry for those I didn't get to. Chris is up next. Be back tomorrow morning with the recap.